Testing 1, 2, 3. What I'm doing now is just staying through the vector tools, going into points, and I played with a little bit of number of the points. Certainly constructing and deconstructing points people should be familiar with. The barycentric point could be interesting. I'll just show you my application of it. Probably not a very normal way to do it, but all the same, kind of cool. End up with this funky donkey art thing, and I think it's kind of fun how I generated it. Get lost in these scripts, have a lot of fun, do what you got to do, and I'm just going to hide this away and see what we can do with it. So here it is. I've gone in and made a cylinder. I've then clouded it with 3 wonderful points, which you could seed differently, which actually would be kind of nice. Grab a little seed point and throw that into there, so you can seed that differently and end up with different points wherever you want. That's going to change, and I'm going to be hard-pressed to get back to where I was. Well, I could just unseed it. The barycentric point wants an ABC, so I basically just took those points, ABC, dealt in single list items. I'm not dealing with lists of lists as of yet. I thought the UV coordinates, what happens if I grab 2 UV coordinates, one by the U and one by the V, by this on this surface by a UV slider? So that can be manipulated. You can grab that point wherever you want on top of the surface of that cylinder. So that's pretty interesting. So I've got one there. I'll put it in the middle. I've got a second one here on there. So 1, 2, and 3. I thought those points, what if I popped them into the UVW reference points instead of XYZ and had double points? Well, either way, I end up with a point in the middle that I can kind of control as a barycentric center. And it just subtly, the very subtle little shift. In fact, I think it's super subtle. Not so much in that point system here. I thought I actually could play off of it. What I need to do is have a look at my data, and is it changing in here? It's hard for me to see because it's so small on the screen. Yeah, I'm not changing it at all. It's basically set up to be that point of what was there in those UV coordinates. So we'll see if we have any control as we move farther along. I did decide to make a point inside of there to that barycentric position, and then join those lines out. And I just did those as reference points, the center to the sides. And then from the sides of that, ends of those lines, I decided to also move the geometry farther out, these points. I'd blast them out in a sense of these geometries. So I've got these points, and I've got those lines in between. And I made arches. That's basically what I ended up doing. So I've got these cool little arcs that I have control over, and I put them through a variable pipe range, and there they are. Now let's hope, once again, that I haven't messed up my script. Yeah, there we go. I do have some control, certainly on the outside ones as I change. It's not really essential that I went in and had the control over these points. It really is a sense of playing with those sliders to change the U, V, and W coordinates. And you got to ask yourself, well, what's the point of this? Why would you get into doing this? I think it's kind of cool. I think it plays with the vectors, so it adjusts these points quite a bit. These points are really in permanent positions the way they are, and they're 2 of the exact same point. So I guess I could have just found area center, and I wouldn't have to go through all that population. I don't really know if I'm utilizing the barycentric point in any particular way, besides just finding points on the surface and then ending up with 2 points from these 3 points that are clouded. So, very basically, finding that geometry tied to these geometries and putting it through kind of a line system of orienting it. That's how I came at thinking about it. That's what I ended up making. It's kind of a funny form and awkward, but without considering kind of going in and wanting to find those other points, UVs, and possible W's on top of a surface. This is an MD slider that's just 2-dimensional. You can take those 2 dimensions and work them into XYZ in reference to UVW if that's not making too much sense. World plane and local plane coordinate system, world and local coordinate system. I think that can be pretty cool. And then technically just grab your object. That was the final form, that weird shape. What's going to happen when I change the geometry of that initial shape and the number sliders on it? Let me just take a moment to pull those out, pop them in here, and there we go. We get this awkward reaction to it. Just because the surface changes, I can take that off And that's how like I said, that's how I get lost in these things. Take the preview off, and now I've got a system that kind of overflows and kind of goes through the circle. It's not so much staying to the surface and going out on the normals. It's pretty interesting to think what has actually happened geometrically as I move and change these slider points, how the geometry has to update to that. And it kind of looks like this weird kind of fruit. I'm not sure what to say about it. Get into this one, kind of funk it around and move it. I mean, that's pretty good control. As a sculptor, I don't deal in inflatables. I don't deal in rubbers. I deal in wax and very stubborn materials. But that's kind of exciting to think I can accentuate and activate this in this kind of growing modeling system. And I do think the more a sculptor and more artists play with this tool, the more interesting forms we're going to generate that haven't been generated as of yet. They'll come from knowledge of how to make it a certain way and then translate it through the digital media and then back into analog. I'm very excited about this. I'm not sure the render obviously loses the other form. Let me take it into a bake and just pop it out there so we can see what we're dealing with. And I'll just throw that into a little tiny EMAP. And that's a very strange object that I quite honestly can't say I would ever have made or done or rotated or found, but I definitely think there's a casting series coming farther down the line from this strange type of modeling. It's quite simple. It's digital modeling. It's not trying to mimic anything else. It will generate new and creative art forms because of the medium in and of itself, and I'm starting to understand that more and more as a kind of veteran teacher after 30 years and 20 years in the schools and 30 years making. I'm definitely going to take the 116 script. I'm going to group it. I am going to color code it into the exciting realm of what it is, and we'll continue posting these videos. Thanks for watching.